Hey, good evening, Nick's Pinball Chronicles channel. For the last couple of nights, I ordered a bunch of these MOLEX 0.156 connectors so I could repin a lot of these IDCs that are in here, which are poor connections, and put them, repin them, terminate them, so they make a good solid connection. So I'm going to demonstrate what I've been doing, and I'll have you guys along for the ride. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm going pin for pin. Pin 3 is the key pin. So I'm on this is pin 4. So I'm going to pop this wire out of the old IDC with a pair of needle nose pliers. Comes out pretty easy, you just got to tug it a little bit. You're going to strip this end off anyways. This is the end that they stick in there. Just get your strippers, strip it back. You don't need that much wire exposed. Get your crimper ready with your 156 MOLEX. Twist it up. And again, this is pin 4. You just want to stick it in there. Get it nice and lined up. Push it in there and crimp. So the crimp will take the first crimp there and crimp around the insulation, and the second crimp will actually crimp the wire. And you just put it in the new connector, pin 4. And these are the locking tabs, so you want to put the pin in the correct way. It pops into place. There's pin 4. I'm going to go to, next one is pin 5. And just repeat the process. Try to dig it out of there. Again, it's okay if you mangle the end because you're going to strip it back anyways. Take your strippers. Look at all I always try to hold stripper so I can catch the excess wire insulation that I strip off. Get in a nice pigtail. Load the die again with the 156 MOLEX. And the process just repeats over and over again. Crimp. You want to check the crimp, make sure it's solid. It is. And pin 5. And it pops right into place. So you got 1, 2, pin 3 is the key, 4, 5, and you have 6, 7, and 8. Next one is 6. Now these connectors that are 1 for 1, they go fairly quickly. And again, it's the same process. Strip it back. Get a new pin ready. Load it in the crimper. Give this thing a nice twist. crimp. And check it. Beautiful. Locks in. Good. 2 more. And one comes out. Some of them are kind of hard to come out, but again, when you pull it out of the IDC, it doesn't matter what the end looks like because you're going to be stripping this bad part back. Because you just want to expose the wire. And if you have a couple of extra strands, you can always trim it with a nice pair of flush wire cutters. Again, and also too, these crimpers are for between 18 and 22 gauge wires. Check the crimp, that's good. Push it into the locks, and you'll hear it pop in. And the last one. You can junk this thing, garbage. Williams never meant these machines to be operating for 30+ years. And again, they manufactured these wire harnesses for speed and probably cost reduction, because you don't have to worry about individually crimping every pin. You just take a whole wire harness and do a quick punch. Last one, pin 8. And I labeled all my connectors, so you can just, I'll put cable ties on them as soon as I get it cleaned up. But here you go. Pops right in. It's nice and tight, actually. Beautiful. You want it nice and secure, nice and tight. That sucker's not going anywhere. Very, very good connection. It's not going anywhere. You want to kind of put even pressure on the connector when you're pushing it on, because you don't want to stress the board. Even though it's on standoffs, you don't want to stress it out. So the other thing I was talking about, I'll take a little break from terminating. The other thing I was talking about with these is some examples are, let's say for instance, this connector right here. This actually has, take it off here. This is a power plug that actually has 2 pins in the connector that's powered off the same wire. Like, let's say, let me see how this is keyed. So this is pin 1. So you have what looks like your black wire, which is a power wire, powers pin 1, pin 2 is the key, and then it jumps over to pin 3. So what they did was they just added extra length of the wire and looped it. But the way I'm doing it now is when I'm re-terminating with the new pins and the new connectors, I actually take the connector and make a splice and kind of pigtail 2 wires off of 1 wire, and I use solder, and then I put heat shrink tubing over it to protect the wires. But that's how, this is the best way to do it. It takes a little bit more time because you're not going pin for pin, but it's a lot better than, there's another method. You could kind of stack wires into one pin, but a lot of the times these bigger gauge wires, they don't fit into a single pin. So you gotta splice it. So you take the extra length of wire and you cut it in half, and then you have your two smaller pigtails that come off the main, and then you just solder it together and put shrink tubing over it. So that's my method. I guess that's the easiest way to do it. So stay tuned, I have more. And here's what I'm talking about. If you take the extra length and you make a fork, put some solder on here, take this end, put a piece of shrink tubing on it. I have a little holder here so you can actually put the wire in a little clamp. I can't do it with one hand while I'm holding the phone. Hold on a second. Let me put you down for a second. Give me a sec. So I'll put them together like that, and I'll put solder on it. I'll move the heat shrink down and I'll shrink it, and I'll have two pins instead of the pigtail that was originally on the IDCs. Much better, more reliable connection. Okay, I got the two leads soldered together. I can focus in on it. Two leads soldered, slide the tubing over for extra protection, and then heat shrink. Let me get my heat gun. And there we go. Handy little heat gun. And just shrink the sleeve over the wire. That's good. And you just take the new connector, and instead of it being pigtailed, you have pins 1 and pin 3. Pin 2 is the key pin on this connector. Slide it into the locks. Boom. Simple as that. And let's repeat the process for the other wires. So we have 2 more. You have 4 and 5, and 6 is looped into 7 coming from this wire. So this wire is 6 and 7. This wire is 4 and 5. Again, just pop it out, pry it out like that. Then you got all the extra length. Take the middle part off. Good. Put that other one out of the way, because that's the last one you're going to do. So this wire here that was pushed into the IDC looks like it's, it broke the insulation. So you can cut it there because you're going to be stripping this back at that point and make your splice. Try to even the length on the wires. Cut your splice. Leave that there. Take the main wire, strip it back. You want to strip it back a little bit more because that's the part that you're going to be soldering and putting the shrink tubing over. Then you take your 2 pigtails that you just made, and you put 156 pins on either end, on both one end of each wire of these splices that you made, or that I made. Get the tool, 156 pin, and crimp. There's one pigtail. Get my pin. Get this in the tool. Here's the second pigtail. Again, you want to make sure you're crimping. The furthest crimp away is crimping on the insulation. So when you're looking at the pin, perfect. This tool is great. I think I got this on Amazon. It was less than 20 bucks, I think. Great tool. So the two pigtails you just made the pins with, you just strip the other end back. Again, a little bit longer because you're going to be making the pigtail here. And take these two ends, make sure the pins are on one end, and just make a pigtail. Put it in. I have a holder here that helps hold the wires while you're soldering. That just to make it easier. These aren't that expensive either. These holders are cheap. And just take your soldering iron. I usually keep my iron at like 700 degrees. It's a good temperature to heat up this type of gauge. It's a heavy gauge power wire, so it takes a while to get hot. Put some heat on it. Sometimes it doesn't hold, it spins. And it should flow. When the wire gets hot enough, the solder will flow into the wire. And be careful you don't get solder splash everywhere. I know I should be working on a work platform, but my this mat that I have is fine. Okay, that's all solid now. And you take this end and you put your other end in the alligator clip. Get some solder on this end. This doesn't take that long to heat because you just got one heavy gauge wire you're going through. Let it heat up. There we go. Let the solder flow through with the nice heat. Clean the tip. You have to have a really good soldering iron, by the way. I have a temperature controlled Weller. I highly recommend, if you have or been working on pinball machines, that is definitely the soldering iron to get. A Weller is a very good quality iron. It's a little bit more expensive, but what's nice about it is it's temperature controlled. Why is this spinning? Let me see. I gotta spin this guy. Here we go. All right, and just kind of put them together at the right angle. Oh, almost forgot my tubing. Don't forget this before you solder it. Get a piece of tubing, cut it, and put it on the single end. And get these kind of even so they're on top of each other. And flow a little, not too much because you already got solder on both the wires, so It doesn't take much to melt them together. And you got a good solid connection between the splice. There it is. Boom. Very good. Just like butter. And let that cool. Take your tube, slide it over your splice, and probably clamp it in again just to hold it so you can get your trusty heat gun. Or again, this method is a little more time consuming, but in the long run it's worth doing this way. This connection will last a lifetime. Okay, and you take the new connector that you had earlier, and you're going into 4 and 5. Make sure your pins are aligned properly because your lock is a certain direction. There's 4, boom, and here's 5. Make sure that they're tight in there. There you go. One more to go. That's the whole process. Fairly easy. Just got to take your time. And much better connection in the long run.